Hi, my name's Eliza, and today we're going to have a look at an introduction to pentatonic improvising for absolute beginners. So, quickly, who do I mean by absolute beginners? Maybe you've learned a couple of your open chord shapes, you're interested in getting into lead guitar playing, but you're not really sure where to start. Or maybe you haven't quite learned your pentatonic scale yet. We're going to cover that today. Or if you have learned your pentatonic scale, or one shape at least of the pentatonic scale, and you're not quite sure how to begin applying that in a musical context and turning it into playing, really musical playing, that's what we're going to kind of cover today. How to begin taking a concept like a scale and begin to make music with it and begin to improvise with it. So if you're already at that stage where you're sort of improvising and you're looking for something that's going to help you move around the fretboard more, this probably isn't the lesson for you. We're taking a real base level intro today. One thing I will say, however, is you may be familiar with the shape, but if you're not too sure about which intervals are actually going on there or which notes are in the scale, that's something I'd like to cover today. I think it's really important, especially further down the line. It can really hinder your playing if you're not sure which notes you're playing and why, and what the relationship is between those notes. So we're going to really go in depth with just our basic pentatonic scale today and learn how to begin moving around that a bit more freely. And just quickly before we dive into the lesson, if you do enjoy the lesson, please consider, leaving a like or subscribing to the channel. I'm going to try and post a few more lessons like this as part of a sort of introductory series. And if you're interested in one-to-one tuition via Skype, you can drop me a DM on Instagram or email me. I'll leave all that in the description below, and can make any lesson inquiries there. I would love to have some more pupils aboard. So without further ado, let's get into it. So today we're going to begin by looking at our good friend, the E minor box 1 pentatonic scale. If you're not familiar with this guy yet, as a guitar player, you're going to be. So many of the great solos, great rock songs that you probably know and love happen here in our E minor box 1 pentatonic. So we're going to look at E minor. A lot of people begin by learning their A minor position. I like to teach E minor first because it's a bit of a personal bias. A lot of the rock music I really love happens around the E minor, but also it's actually quite a comfortable position to solo in. And if you're a singer, it's a pretty good key for most people to sing into. So it's a great position to learn to begin with. So let's first of all learn the shape, and then we're going to go in and talk about the notes and the intervallic relationships between those notes. We have our E here on our 12th fret of our low E string. So we start on the 12th, and we want to use our pointer finger for this one. And then I'm going to use my ring finger. You'll see some people like to use their pinky here, their small finger. I'm going to use my ring. It's really at your discretion. Bringing in the pinky finger earlier on is actually a pretty good idea because it's an area that a lot of people struggle with when it comes to developing dexterity further down the line. But I'm going to use my ring finger for now. So we've got our 12th on our low E string. Then we have 15 here, the ring finger. Moving on to our A string. We've got 12 again. 14. On our D string, we've got 12, 14, G string, 12 again, 14, B string, we've got 12, 15, and on our high E string, we have 12, and 15 again. Okay, so to recap that, 12, 15, 12, 14, 12, 14, 12, 14, 12, 15, 12, 15. And you can practice going up and down that a little bit. So quickly to talk about root notes, intervallic relationships, etc. When I say intervallic, talk about intervals, which is just the distance between two notes, to put it kind of bluntly. I find that a lot of the time, even really, really beginners lessons, there's a lot of this kind of music theory jargon in there, which if you're kind of self-taught like I am, you don't always know what you don't know. So I think it's always good to explain even the simple things here, right? So when we hear the term root note, that's kind of our home note. It's the note that we're getting the name of the scale from. If I'm talking about my E minor pentatonic scale, my E is my root note. So essentially, our root note is the note we're starting on. If we're talking about our E minor pentatonic, our root note is E, which you can find here on the 12th fret of your E string. There's an octave right there. So here on our 12th fret, that's our root note. It's important to know where your root notes are because they act as really good sort of target notes. When we're improvising, it's really good to have an idea where you're going, which note you're planning on getting to, arriving at as sort of a destination. And root notes are good ones because most of the time, especially if you've got quite a repetitive riff, just something like that. Oh God, I'll probably get muted for that now. But something, quite repetitive and sort of drones on your ear. If you're heading for your E notes, your target notes, your root notes, it's really good to know where those are. So the next note that we have in our scale is our minor third. That's here on our 15th fret of our low E. Now, the pentatonic scale gets its name, pent, 5. It's a 5-note scale. That's where it gets its name from. And we'll talk about all the intervals it's comprised of, but our first one is a minor third, which in this case, from E, is our G note. So E, you can always count up in semitones if you're still getting used to the note names on your neck, so you can always count up like E, F, F sharp, G. That's a good way to check it. So minor third. Okay. Then when we move on to our A string, we've got our A note here, which is our perfect fourth. If you want to recognize that by ear, it's the start of the Harry Potter theme. And so on. It can be really, really helpful to start coming up with some ways to recognize these intervals by ear as well. The more your ears develop, the more you're going to be able to come up with some tasteful improvisation. So we've got our minor third, moving on to the 12th of our A string. There's our perfect fourth, or just fourth if you want to keep things simple. Then, moving up to our B note, 14th on our A string, B note that is, that's our perfect fifth. That you can recognize as Star Wars. It's the start of the Star Wars theme. So, root, E, minor third, fourth, perfect fifth. Now we have our minor seventh. So this is our fifth interval that we have in a pentatonic scale. Root, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, minor seventh. And our minor seventh in the key of E is a D note here on the 12th fret of the D string. Okay, so that's our minor seven. And here is the first of our octaves on the 14th fret of the D string. So, within this pentatonic shape that we have on the guitar, that's a whole sort of run of our minor pentatonic scale there. And then we're going to repeat. So, we've got to our octave here, our E note. Then, again, our minor third happens on the 12th fret of our G string, our G note, our minor third. Then we move up to our A, our perfect fourth. Then, on the 12th fret of our B string, our B note, we have another perfect fifth. Got that Star Wars theme sound to it. Okay, and then moving up again, there's our other minor 7th on the 15th fret of our B string. Okay, so that's our D note. And then back to our octave again. Our E note, our root note. So there's our roots, right? And it can help to kind of have those roots, at least, in your mind as sort of frames. It's a little structure that you can work in. And because of the nature of the guitar, we've just got an extra little third at the end. Okay, so we go root, third, fourth, fifth, minor 7, root. Root, I'm just playing this one twice so that's a bit more consistency to it. So root, minor 3rd, 4th, 5th, minor 7, root, and our extra little third at the end. So it's going to really, really help. I'm going to pop up on screen somewhere a little sort of chart that has all those in so that you can, screenshot it or save it just so you can keep it there. Because it's really going to help if you know these intervals and you know the notes that you're playing. One of the things that you really want to avoid as a beginner guitar player is the kind of, especially when approaching improvising, is the kind of, I don't want to learn music theory, it'll just be restrictive to me. You wouldn't believe the amount of people I've heard say that. No, it's only going to help. The more you know, the better. Being self-taught, I put it off for a really long time, which was a bad idea. So, learn from my mistakes, learn your theory. The sooner the better. So, we've got our scale shape then. Now, if we want to get into talking about beginning to improvise over a track, beginning to use this, beginning to make it musical, what I'd recommend doing is when you're just practicing the scale, practice it with music. Practice it over a track. Whether that's going on YouTube and typing in, E minor backing track, and you can pick whatever vibe you want, E minor blues, funk, prog rock, folk metal, whatever you're into. Find an E minor backing track, or, if you have a loop pedal, you can just play an E chord, throw in some, your A and your B, like your 4th and your 5th chord or something like that. Or if you have a friend who you want to practice with, take it in turns, get them to, just give you, a riff on the E. And when you're practicing the scale, yes, it's really important to practice it, up and down to a metronome if you want to get your dexterity up to then, be really great at like alternate picking or something later down the line. But for now, put on a backing track, put on some music, and just go up and down your scale to a backing track with music in mind. Practice your scales to music. And that's already going to get you starting to hear what's going on with that, how certain notes in the scale sound over certain chords, etc. And you can also play about with the timing. So you can also pick what BPM you'd like in a track. Now, if you're really not sure about how to actually begin improvising, because I think this is something that's, it's kind of an assumed skill a lot of the time. There's an assumption that you should just be able to take it and improvise and go. But if you're brand new to guitar, and more so if you're brand new to music, if you haven't played much music before, if you haven't played another instrument before, improvising can be a bit intimidating, right? It's like, where do I start? Obviously, a good way is to learn licks and, recall those. But the best way to begin improvising and get comfortable with that sort of making it up on the spot thing is when you've got your backing track on, when you're playing your scale, just up and down. What you want to start to do is just start tweaking it ever so slightly, right? So we can do that with lengths of notes. So maybe I want to go halfway up, and And then I want to get to my root and just hang out there for a while. And then finish my scale. So then maybe you want to play about with how many times you're hitting one note. So this can be as simple as picking one note when you're going up your scale, playing it twice. And so on. Maybe you want to play about with the timing. So rather than going, you could do. Okay. If you've started working on bends already, great. You could add in some of them. Maybe you want to go halfway up and then come back down. Keep it really, really simple for a start. And when you're doing it, really try and remain conscious of what those intervals you're playing are. So if I'm going up my scale and I'm doing that thing where, I want to find a note and just like hang out there for a while, try and be conscious of which note you're picking. I'm hanging out on my root note, hanging out on my minor 7. And that's something that can really work with different chords and different riffs. But just notice how they sound. Sit with it for a while and think, okay, this is how this interval sounds over an E chord. If you've got just a repeating E going on. So just switching up one little thing when you're going up and down your scale. And so we're not, it's not quite sounding like a solo as opposed to just someone playing a pentatonic scale yet. But this is actually what the foundation, what the building blocks are of beginning to use a scale in a musical context. So always practice your scales as well as practicing them to a metronome. Practice them to a backing track. Practice them to a song you like, that's in the right key. There are so many rock songs in E minor. Put one on and you can just go all day, and just begin to tweak one thing at a time. And then once you start getting more confident with that, mix it up. Maybe you want to, do a few more sort of back and forth. Do some bending, etc. It's sort of simple blues solos, simple rock solos, and actually even the more flashy ones. So many great rock solos are essentially just a scale played in different patterns and in different contexts. So begin with your scale to music. Start messing about with it. And I promise you that before you know it, you're going to be soloing. You're going to be improvising. So give that a go. Make your own backing tracks if you feel like it. And just mess with one thing at a time and build it up. Even switching from alternate picking to all down picking and really digging in. I mean, that's a concept that people like Gary Moore or Rory Gallagher, etc. A lot of that really expressive blues playing is switching from like alternate picking to just and you can really make it. You can start to make pretty expressive sounds even with super foundational beginner skills. And hopefully that will get you sounding a little more musical in due course. I hope you found that helpful as a very brief introduction. If you'd like to see a continuation on from that, maybe some licks for beginners, let me know and I can do that. Or some tips on learning the note names on the neck, etc., or some more pentatonic positions and how to begin to move between them. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next one.